Good morning, everyone. Welcome to where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some or hopefully a lot of money on the internet. Loaded up for discussion today. We have some interesting, important bits of news. We've got Trump announcing the US crypto reserve to include Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, XRP, and Cardano. Big discussion to have there. We've got Ethereum announcing 2 new co-executive directors. We also got Crypto.com Kronos blockchain considering proposal to reissue $70 billion previously burned tokens. Probably be spending the majority of time on the crypto reserve news, but we'll get to all of those headlines as well. We'll also discuss the latest crypto price action on crypto and NFTs as usual, plus some thoughts on market rotations as usual. So stay tuned for that. I've got Legendary with me in the co-host seat. We're ready to get into it. But just a reminder, friends, that nothing that we say or think or do on this show is financial advice. This market is very, very risky and we don't know anything for sure. So please proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, it is Monday. It is the 3rd of March. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
GM, doing quite well. I just asked whether the Spaces audio is working. Just Stefano confirmed it is working. So I am doing quite well because it was nothing on our end last week. We had no idea what's going on. And I'm glad that it's back to working. And I can enjoy the show and not have to worry about that. But I'm also now realizing that I might have jinxed it. So let's see how it will do throughout the show.
Yes, you could have done the technological jinx there. Yeah, it happened to me last week as well. Had a few technical issues too, but we're working. We're back. How are you feeling this week? It feels on my side, despite some of the positive. Well, I feel like every weekend we go into some type of asylum on the timeline where people are like either exceptionally bearish or then exceptionally bullish, and this weekend was no different. How are you feeling at the moment? We're obviously going to talk about the headlines themselves and dive into those details a little bit more. How are you just generally feeling at the moment as it relates to the market?
Pretty good. I had a bit of a fun weekend on that. So I said it on the show that I started to DCA back into BTC. Then I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna open a leveraged long on Hyperliquid. Did a 50x long on BTC. Closed that pretty quickly once it was up 100%. And then I saw this one whale doing what we're gonna touch on the show either way, and probably everyone saw in the timeline doing that 200 mil long. And I was like, this person might know something. I will just copy trade that, open the long myself. And then I saw OG Farmer actually posting, this guy doesn't know nothing. There's just people with 9-figure portfolios being degens with a 7-figure stacks. And I was like, maybe he's right. And I did close that. It was already up though once more, but I was like, nope. I might listen to OG Farmer there, to D Farmer, and close that. But overall, up with twice. Going long on a 50x gamble, because that's not trading anymore. That's like purely gambling on Hyperliquid. And I think Funky will love that. What I did do is I also converted all of the profits into spot BTC again. So I'm building that stack.
I like it. That's fun. I think one thing I've noticed, this is something which I've been thinking about as we kind of transition from a mania phase to a non-mania phase. And I was thinking, in a mania phase, you're ready to put trades on like all the time, right? There are daily runners, as people called them. There's like things about to go all the time. And so you're very like your fingers kind of on the trigger all the time. I feel like we're not in that phase now, but because we've almost got that muscle memory of like putting a bet on every day or every other day or something like that, because you think you're trying to catch something. And remember, we're people who basically ignored memes for ages and ages and ages, but we only got into it basically in like October, November or something, because that's what the market was telling you to do if you wanted to put on some trades. So we kind of built that muscle memory up, right? Where it's like, right, what's going today? What's going now? Someone might message you saying, what about this? And you kind of react quickly. And now I wonder whether, if we're not in that period, should I be stopping that behavior then, right? Because catching the bottom of a dip on Bitcoin is not the same as like going into a meme at 1 mil market cap because you think it's going to run to 5. Like actually trading the chop. Okay, Bitcoin has dumped by 8%. I want to buy this dip and go, for a quick 10% or something, or quick 5% or quick 10%. That's a very, very different skill set. And I would argue, at least just reflecting on my own abilities in the market, like I've actually been doing that a little bit on Hyperliquid, because it feels like a game. I just buy the red candles and sell the green ones. But in general, it's definitely not my skill set. Like I've not done that before. And so just because, and I think this is where people can sometimes lose money, for example, just because you're coming out of a period that maybe made you money because you were buying like daily runners, doesn't mean that when we move into this period where it becomes, the daily runners have disappeared, it doesn't mean that you just start buying every dip on Bitcoin, because like that's becoming like an actual trader, a day trader, and that's a different thing. And that might not be the thing that you're necessarily good at, or you might have to put in some time to learn. That is my point. That's something I've been thinking about. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's a very fair point, I think. And I think my answer to that on a personal level is that all the degenerate gambling on Hyperliquid happens with like rather low amounts of money versus the spot buying. Like, like over the last week, I probably bought roughly a bit more than 1 BTC, and the like leveraged longs were like 5K and 10K each. So that's 0.05, 0.1 BTC roughly. So it definitely, yes, obviously it's nice to double that up and add a bit to it. It's more like the experience of using the leverage long, but it definitely wouldn't, say like if I want to buy 1 Bitcoin, take 100K and go all in with that on a 20x or 50x leverage long. So this is like basically me trying to balance spot buys and perps trading.
Yeah, I like it. No, I think that's helpful to talk about, because I think I actually seen a lot of people on the timeline do this coming out of the meme coin cycle. Like a lot of people are now going to the perp side. And I've also read a lot of people, perps is dangerous. Like it's obviously way more dangerous than anything else that you can trade. So, I think it's my caution is, I guess, use an amount, or put in the time to practice, is my point. In the same way, when meme coins were early and you're like, okay, well, this is an amount I'm willing to lose, I think that probably still applies to perps as well. And so if you're going to go in that direction, but yeah, interesting thought. And I think that the reason I wanted to bring that up is because like shifting the mindset from one learned behavior, which is like, right, I'm going to press the button all the time, and just knowing now, okay, we're not necessarily in that period. So what is the exact game I'm playing now? I think is a slightly different game. Okay, I'm buying the dip on Bitcoin, which I did actually do, but the point is just retraining my brain that we're not in the game that I was in 3 weeks ago or something. So that's just something I've been thinking about. Just wanted to share. So maybe that's helpful for people as they kind of frame whatever month we're going. Well, we're going into the month of March, and things have obviously changed. We're going to talk about that now. The political environment is becoming increasingly important again. We'll get to that in just a second, but let's start off with the news as usual, with the price action of the majors. We've got Bitcoin up 9% to 93K. It looks like ETH is up 6% to 2.3. XRP is up 18% to 2.6. BNB is flat at 604. Solana is up 14 to 162. And Cardano is up 50% to $1. Obviously, a lot of these big movers are the movers as a consequence of being included in what Trump called the crypto reserve. And if you're not in the reserve, like BNB, you're flat. And if you are in the reserve, you're up big. So we'll dive into all of the details around that a bit more in just a little bit. Getting into the meme coin side of things, let's see how they responded to the rest of the market moving up. Had Doge up 7% to 22, Pepe's up 7, Trump token itself is up 10, Bonk is up 6, WIF is up 15, SPX up 18, Pengu's actually down 5% today, AI16Z is up 20, Fartcoin's up 46%, Popcat's up 17, Mog's up 3, ARC, the AI token, is up 12. So a lot of green on that board as well. AXBT is up 10. I wouldn't say any of this is necessarily a huge reversal. It's just the rest of the market is green. And so memes have actually moved bigger in this case. Getting into the headlines themselves, we've got Trump announcing the US crypto reserve to include Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, XRP, and Cardano. He says, I will make sure the US is the crypto capital of the world. His son, Eric Trump, said, I love the genius of announcing a strategic reserve on a Sunday when traditional markets are closed and Wall Street sleeps. For the first time, retail investors win. Traditional finance better catch up or quickly become extinct. The world no longer runs on a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Curious to discuss that a little bit later. In other headlines, Ethereum announces 2 new co-executive directors as Vitalik urges young blood to move Ethereum forward. He said what Ethereum needs is a lot of young blood who shares the cypherpunk vision. All OGs are jaded in the next generation now. And then finally, Crypto.com Kronos blockchain considers a proposal to reissue 70 billion previously burned tokens. We'll have to dive in and understand what's going on there a little bit later. On some notable sales, we had a CryptoPunk 3D glasses selling for 58 ETH. Dmitry Cherniak ringers selling for 14.14, and the Door by Matt Kane. It's a cool art piece showing on screen. If you're watching us on video, that sold for 14 ETH as well. Digital art still alive and well. Anything you want to draw attention to on the rest of the NFT market side, Legendary?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a quick look at the general state of the NFT market. It's actually pretty nice. NFTs definitely also profiting off that announcement on the weekend. We have Pudgy Penguins being up 8.5% over the last day, going above the 10 ETH floor again, 10.18 ETH floor. Bored Apes with a bit of a smaller movement, up 3.5%. Other collections like Doodles, Azuki, actually being more stable, not too much movement in there. And another big movement, once again, in the Meebits collection, ever since that takeover announcement, they are up again, up 18% and sitting at a 0.82 ETH floor.
Nice. Excellent summary there. Just getting into the Web3 Roundup to get up to speed with everything else that's happening. At the AI and cryptos are David Sachs revealing he has sold all his crypto before the president's term began. So that is, I guess, answering questions about conflict of interest potentially. Had Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong weighing in on the crypto reserve as well, saying he prefers Bitcoin only for the strategic crypto reserve. A few other people were saying similar. We'll discuss that in detail in a bit. A trader, Legendary mentioned, a trader made $7 million after longing Bitcoin and ETH with 50x leverage before the Trump tweet. That was noticed. That was taking place on Hyperliquid. Japanese investment firm Metaplanet bought another $13.4 million worth of Bitcoin. They're obviously executing their strategy, similar to Strategy's strategy. They're executing their Bitcoin strategy on the Japanese side. Infinex announced self-sovereign Bitcoin wallets with on-chain multi-sig, seeing more options now for custodying Bitcoin. Obviously, you can do that on Hyperliquid. You can do that in the Magic Eden wallet. Infinex looks like they're entering that arena. And finally, Ronaldinho coin hits almost $400 million after a tweet from CZ saying that his tweet was not an endorsement. Explicitly saying it was not an endorsement, which sent the coin to 400 mil. It's pulled back since to around 300. Got a sense that's going to encourage more people now, which I thought we'd maybe got over the celeb coin meta, but maybe that's going to be back, or maybe it's just never going to go realistically. Right, that's the roundup. Before we get into the main headlines, Legendary, what is catching your attention there from the other bits of news or anything else in the market?
Yeah, honestly, most of the things that I find very interesting today in the Web3 Roundup are actually connected to the crypto reserve. In particular, David Sachs having said that he sold all of his spot holdings in terms of crypto, BTC, ETH, Solana, prior to the start of the administration. Obviously, the question on the other hand being he still has probably a very healthy exposure through his portfolio companies, where we just don't know if he has sold them as well or not. But there was definitely a bit of a bigger discussion on the timeline that he has a conflict of interest because it is his bags that are being pumped. So at least now we do know, okay, spot bags have been sold, but we definitely, at least that's the current status of my knowledge. We don't know how the rest of his exposure looks like. And that kind of also connects to that Hyperliquid trader with the 7M in spot basically turned into 200 mil leveraged position to trade on that news on a very, very good timing, which once again kind of raises the question, who was trading that and why, and if there was like some additional information to be had. And I think that's probably gonna be a bit more of a prominent theme throughout that administration that we've also seen ultimately with the Trump meme coin, that if we have this stronger push for digital assets for cryptocurrencies, that this question, when there's going to be significant announcements and just as a nature of crypto that you can trade those news anonymously, which is a bit more difficult with, look at websites like Capital Trades, which is documenting Nancy Pelosi, other cabinet members trading their stocks portfolios publicly. Bit difficult with crypto. So I do think that might be a bit more of a recurring theme whenever we're going to have a crypto announcement, that this discussion will come back. Has someone insider traded it? Who had knowledge? What happened? Why is there a 500 mil leveraged long on a future announcement? So I do think that there needs to be a clear policy or also like communication strategy on that, because ultimately, even David Sachs' move to sell before the administration started is good, but it was only basically became public, not proactively, but more like reactionary to the commentary on the timeline that this is a bit of a weird position, that he ultimately had to reply to that.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. There's a variety of criticisms about the strategic reserve. Maybe we can deal with this one now, and we'll deal with the more concrete criticism later, which is about whether it should just be Bitcoin or not. But yeah, one of the criticisms is that, look, I think Nikita Beer, the startup guy who's like really good at scaling loads of companies, one of his criticisms was like, guys, what's going on? It's just like a kickback to the family in various ways. That was one criticism. And then the other one is just they're going to be opening themselves up to this type of, whether it's an insider trading investigation, whether it's an investigation just into like what information is being shared when, who's benefiting when, what trades are being put on when. I don't think people like that, and I think a lot of people actually have got uncomfortable with the connection. Maybe this is the broader point that even I put out earlier: the broader connection now between Bitcoin and all of this crypto and politics. I think maybe it's all. I was thinking about it after I wrote a tweet, something like, I don't know if this is how it's supposed to be. Like, the vision for this decentralized money wasn't necessarily supposed to be begging or pleading for the president to tweet something good about it, and that is the only reason it goes up. And if they don't do what they say, then it goes down. Don't think that was the original forecast. However, I guess it's always been very important what's going on economically and politically. As interest rates go down, Bitcoin tends to go up. So it's not like it exists in a vacuum. But I have become, I don't know, I think there's something uncomfortable with the immediate ties between politics and Bitcoin. And I think it's frustrated maybe a lot of the more idealistic people. It's like, damn, is this the only way this asset's going to go up? Is this the only way if this collection of people, if the Trump family basically Trump and the administration and everyone involved decide to put it in the thing, and if it doesn't go in, then we're going to nuke back to times before. Any reflections there, Legendary? I might be being a little bit dramatic just to make the point. Where do you kind of sit on it? Then would love to bring in Funky on this, who has his hand raised.
No, I definitely agree with you. And I think this is what I kind of try to express with the communication strategy that one is needed, because even if, say, that hyperliquid whale is just a random trader, the D-farmer theory, basically sitting on a 9-figure stack, gambling with 7 figures, and just happens to hit that trade perfectly, which is also obviously a realistic possibility. You want to be prepared for that, because you will face that criticism and you will have that closer tie between politics and crypto. And I also get it, like, from the idealistic standpoint, that criticism also towards TradFi now having loads of volume being, at the end of the day, pulled through the ETFs. But that's the criticism that I don't think is that relevant, in my opinion, because ultimately, if you want mass adoption, if you want this to be a new monetary system that is to be prevalent in the world, there needs to be a transition phase from TradFi to DeFi, et cetera, and that only works if in that transition phase the regular people can use the guardrails from TradFi that they've been used to onboard to the new system, and in some potential future then maybe go into self-custody, maybe explore what there is to do in the world of blockchains. So that's the idealistic criticism. While I understand it, that's the one that I can't really get behind, because otherwise it's always going to stay a small idealistic bubble and never will be impactful to a larger audience.
Fair. I think that's a fair point. Funky, would love to hear your thoughts as the resident Bitcoin bull. How are you squaring this? I guess the departure from maybe the more cypherpunk values to this kind of more corporate agenda for Bitcoin, and the kind of focus on that and the reliance on the corporate political agenda in order for things to happen with Bitcoin at the moment.
Jim, yeah, no, I mean, I'm kind of in Legendary's camp. As a pragmatist, I feel like whatever is best for the entire asset class is probably the best for, just the long-term viability of it, rather than being, as you said, in a very tiny bubble. I think even had, say, Harris won, it still would have happened, right? Like it just would have happened at a slower pace. So I think this is something that we all predicted, that had Trump won, it was going to just, the velocity at which all this was going to happen, this transition was just going to be that much greater. And I kind of maybe had a hint. I didn't open along, obviously, but when I was at the Blockchain Association member meeting last Tuesday, they had talked about this president's working group and how it shifted away from the Crypto Council, and how they was going to have their first summit on March 7th. And they said expect some other announcements before the summit, but they didn't say what. So I'm guessing this was probably what they were alluding to. So maybe, to the broader point in the discussion, that clearly people have that asymmetric information. We talked about that many times, and that totem pole of information, and being at the bottom, being able to open along and knowing that this is just about to blast off. I mean, imagine that guy that had the wrapped punks kept his long open. So yeah, but it's just kind of crazy what this does engender, right? Because you can trade when the markets aren't open, the traditional markets and everything else. So it's really an interesting thing to see. And who's going to benefit the most? Obviously, are the people who are closest to getting that information, and being in a position to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I think it's a bunch of reasonable points. I think that is the pragmatist's view. Look, I think we're going to come back to this in a second. We're going to properly set it up, explain what was exactly said, and maybe dive in a bit deeper. So we'll do that in just a moment, along with the other headlines, which is going to be a little bit on Ethereum's new co-executive directors, as well as what's going on with crypto.com. We will spend the majority of time on this, though, today, given that it is the main news. Before we get there, though, let's get into today's entrepreneurial segment. It's called Publish Advertise Already. We're going to explain some of the key secrets and tips to making money online as a creator. Today, we wanted to just go behind the scenes for a second and explain what it takes to actually produce one episode of Founding Crypto, our new interview show. This segment is brought to you by Little Nouns, an expansion DAO based on the famous Nouns DAO, who fund cool creative endeavors who can proliferate the Nounish meme. So if you don't know, Founding Crypto is our new weekly interview show where we interview the best and most ambitious builders in the space. We've had Luca on, we've had Rushi on from Movement Labs, we had the co-founder of Mega ETH on too. Instead of just turning up and pressing record, though, there's a bunch of things we do behind the scenes, which has led to some really top teams reach out to us to come on the show. So we wanted to just share some of that process with you. In order to produce one episode, this is what goes into it. So, of course, you've got the discussion and booking of the top guests. You've got all of the admin around calendar invites and making sure that people know how to join properly. We go live on Twitter Spaces as well as StreamYard. So that's like that admin to do. You've got the interview preparation too, which is we've got to prep all of the questions and then kind of be flexible as the show goes on. You've got the preview thumbnail for announcement tweets. You've got to remind the guests the day before, whilst we have to be in communication with the guests to make sure they are live in both places. That's something we've got to do like as they're about to join the show. We then make a different thumbnail for YouTube, which includes an image from the guest actually on the show. And we actually we find that this timestamps are really, really important for those interviews. So we write super detailed timestamps for those. People like that when you've got a big interview. Then we do all the uploads. Then we have to download the audio file only, so that when we upload to Pods Media, we can mint the episode. Then we fill in all those details and mint the episode and then publish to Twitter. So there's a whole load of stuff that we do to make these things go well. By taking that approach, I think we've had numerous top teams reach out to be featured on the show. And ultimately, I think it's one thing to build an audience, but it's another to build a brand with which people want to align. So that's really the goal here. And I think those efforts are a step in the right direction. Legendary, what are your thoughts on the brand progress in that way? What have you thought of this like expansion out into the new show?
Yeah, first on the expansion of the new show, I think the really interesting point is that our thing has always been with them on the market to like focus on one thing, do that well. Once we do that well, then just execute on the next thing and don't try to expand in 3 different directions at the same time, but really like manage to establish the processes first. And once we have them, and once we're even able to say, as you just explained in this segment, this is the process behind a single interview, then we can think about scaling to the next step or even outsourcing the existing step, getting additional help in, and then growing that. That on the process side of things. On the brand side of things, that was a more interesting discussion that we had in the background, basically leading up to that. Because obviously we've done the rebranding around the modern market, the typo, the colors, etc., etc. And for us, the key challenge was the founding crypto part needs to stay in the brand world of the modern market, but also needs to work standalone, because this is how we think about growth ultimately. If we want to do more standalone shows, that they fit in this media universe, but have a brand that is strong enough to not be dependent on the daily show on the modern market, but are close enough yet that it works to do the show and straight go into the interview after that, because it's the same live stream that basically keeps going. And that, I think, was one of the reasons why we probably went back and forth more than 50 times with the designer, working on that and editing the details and ironing the kinks out until we reached the state where we're like, yep, we are kind of happy to take this out in the real world, but also acknowledge that there's like still work to be done on that end.
Yeah, definitely. I think probably more than 100 times, to be honest. But as you say, like trying to create the universe of modern market shows is on the agenda. And this is just like the first foray into that. So look, we try to do these little segments to shine some light into the entrepreneurial aspects of the business as well. I know there's a lot of other people who are creating online all the time, and hopefully that's helpful as a little bit of insight. So shout out to Lil Nouns as usual for sponsoring this segment. They are awesome, and we've still got some more segments from them to come on this. Right, let's keep it moving. We want to get into the main headline. We've obviously immediately were pulled into this Bitcoin, this crypto reserve even before we got here. But Legendary, why don't you just set us up for it? What is the key bits of information? Maybe what are some key reactions to the main news, and then let's discuss it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's set up the crypto reserve news properly. All started with Donald Trump posting on Truth Social. First post being a US crypto reserve will elevate this critical industry after years of corrupt attacks by the Biden administration, which is why my executive order on digital assets directed the presidential working group to move forward on a crypto strategic reserve. Note the term reserve. We moved from stockpile now to talk about reserve. It includes XRP, Solana, Cardano. I will make sure the US is the crypto capital of the world. We are making America great again. Immediate reaction on the timeline was grave dancing on ETH and being like, why is ETH not included? Why is BTC not being mentioned? There was another post to clarify by Donald Trump that said, and obviously BTC and ETH, as other valuable cryptocurrencies, will be at the heart of the reserve. I also love Bitcoin and Ethereum. One of the first immediate posts, and we also touched on it, but still I want to mention it again, is by Eric Trump saying, I love the genius of announcing a strategic reserve on a Sunday. Traditional markets are closed and Wall Street sleeps. For the first time, retail investors win. There's been some criticism to that in the comments, most prominently by Keyboard Monkey, very famous trader in this space. Also said, a bit confused how retail wins in this scenario when most retail unsophisticated participants would have bought the ETFs if they wanted exposure to cryptocurrencies. That is, so that was some of the pushback directly to this post by Eric Trump. Obviously, Peter Schiff, the gold bull, had to comment on that as well, saying he understands actually the rationale for a Bitcoin reserve, doesn't agree with it, but gets it. We do have a gold reserve. Bitcoin is digital gold, which is better than analog gold. So let's create a Bitcoin reserve too. But what's the rationale for an XRP reserve? Why the hell would we need that? Couple more reactions that we touched on, where basically the whole David Sachs conversation that we mentioned in terms of his personal holdings that he said he sold. There's also another part to that as a response to a post by Joe Lonsdale, who said taxation is theft, should be kept to a minimum. Why is the government taking basically my money to tax me for crypto bro schemes? David Sachs commented on that. Nobody announced the tax or a spending program. Maybe you should wait to actually find out what's actually being proposed. And then there were a couple more takes, but there's only one that I really want to get into before I'm going to pause for a bit, which was quick thoughts on the strategic reserve. Expect, and I want to get into this specifically because we talked about it on the show, expect a lot more lobbying by crypto CEOs in Washington. We had that interview with Rushi from Movement Labs where he spoke exactly about that this is now the most powerful thing to do to advance crypto, to be lobbying in Washington. This will have an impact on moving crypto teams back to the US. There's no reason for the US to have a reserve of anything but BTC. Also that take in there. Then the interesting part to me, Dino coins are actually kind of positioned well here because they're mostly boom organizations set up for business development and lobbying. And CT will continue to be surprised and upset the good, quote unquote, good projects don't get chosen for this type of thing. But exactly that organizational structure of the more boomer coins, having a stronger focus on biz dev, having maybe stronger connections to Washington, to policymakers, will make it easier for them probably to be in that circle of the crypto strategic reserve, and kind of reinforcing exactly that point of lobbying now becoming yet again a more important thing for our industry.
Okay. Excellent summary. I think that's super helpful to understand a little bit of the timeline of the announcements yesterday regarding the crypto reserve and some of the reactions to it. There's three directions I think we can take this, and actually, to be honest, I'm just curious what other people hear. So we've got Funky up on stage, we've got Oxy up on stage, we've got Stats up on stage. I'm going to just throw to you guys, if you're available, for some thoughts here. The three directions, or the three questions I think we'll deal with is like, first, where do we stand on should it be more than Bitcoin? I think Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong came out and said he doesn't really see why it should be more than Bitcoin as well. The only other argument I saw for more than Bitcoin was that, look, if this is going to be strategically important in the future, if blockchains are going to be strategically important, the US should own a portion of all of them. But then the criticism of that I saw, which I think is fair, is like, well, okay, but then there's all kinds of companies that are strategically important. Should the US be investing in all the companies in the world that are strategically important, whether that's minerals, weapons, or this or that or whatever? So I think that actually gets dealt with quite quickly. So that's the first question, more than Bitcoin or not. Second one is whether, I guess this is actually more existential. Should people be being taxed? Should taxpayer dollars be going into the reserve, or should it just be like a stockpile, keeping whatever they've got already? And then finally, this thing about lobbying. I think this is the thing that's kind of maybe hurt people's spirit a little bit. Like the lobbying aspect is hurting people's spirit because of the ideals and values for Bitcoin. I'm curious on what people think on that. So Funky's got his hand raised first. Maybe we'll come to you. You take it in whatever direction you want. Then Oxy will come in and Stats will come to you just after. Funky first.
Thanks, B. Yeah, I mean, to the first point, I think, yes, it should just be a separate strategic Bitcoin reserve, and something I've said for months that I hope they do something legislatively, because an executive order can just be struck down with the whim of, the next president. So I'd rather that go through and just be its own thing, because the way they talked originally, it seemed like there was going to be sort of like a digital asset fund that would probably just hold liquid tokens, could move in and out of those positions as necessary. but the strategic Bitcoin reserve always seemed like it's going to be about hodling, right? And hanging on to that for the long term, much like we do with gold, if it's in Fort Knox or whatever, because everybody seems like to think that it's not. So I think there's that. Getting to the third point, however, with the lobbying, as a former educator and as someone who's doing this in some capacity with my side thing for the Ardent Blockchain Education Initiative, I think ultimately it depends on what you're trying to achieve, right? Like in my case, I'm trying to educate legislators. When I go in there, I talk to them about the power of blockchain technology, some of the things that it can unlock, and how we have to teach our students about this because we're going into a world that's only increasingly becoming more and more digital, right? And so at first we were approaching it as, hey, maybe this is for people who are interested in coding and want to learn how to build blockchains. But after a conversation with Senator Danny Burgess here in Florida, he suggested, why not talk about digital assets in the context of financial literacy, which is something that really is going to be important and is going to affect everyone. Because if we do shift away from what we call TradFi and it becomes more DeFi as all of us know it, then we have there's a responsibility, I think, to teach young people about what this world looks like. So I mean, lobbying has become sort of a dirty word, but I feel as if if you're educating, if you're advocating, it's not like it's different, I guess, if you're a chain and you're trying to like, oh, use our chain, right? If you're going in there with the intent of just trying to educate legislators on what blockchain technology is, that's radically different than, hey, I'm coming here, I'm seeking an appropriation, so you can give me a bunch of money and then build out like, something on my chain or whatnot. That's a very different kind of conversation. So like from where I come from the angle I come at it, I think it's more education, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And to the point about the Blockchain Association, this is effectively what they do. Ray and I are probably going to take part in what they have, a fly-in program. You can go to DC and they will just set you up with tons of meetings, and you can go in and just educate and talk to these legislators at the federal level about what blockchain is and the promise that it holds for the future.
I like it, man. Appreciate those thoughts. I understand the distinction between education and maybe more aggressive lobbying. The thing that I think is that in reality, though, like I know where you're going when you're saying that lobbying has like a dirty word, but I was kind of sympathetic to even Rushi's point generally, which is like, do you want your blockchain to be used or not? Like in the end, as CEO of the blockchains, like you need to go and the get the activity where you see it could potentially come from. And government contracts are always wonderful contracts to have. I can completely empathize with the people who are in charge of the chains who see this as a humongous opportunity to get meaningful activity on their chain. Like that's what they want, that's what they need, that's what their mandate is. That's why people have invested in them, to go and get activity. So I understand that there's like, it feels in contrast to the spirit of crypto, but it is the reality of business. So I think there's an interesting point to be made there. Oxy, let's go to you. Then we'd love to get stats into the conversation too.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And it's funny, Funky, I think you may have just kind of swayed my opinion a little bit, just in that little monologue there. Well done, sir. Related to like the crypto reserve and having Ethereum in it, and or not, I was initially under the impression that I thought that the crypto reserve should have, Ethereum, or it shouldn't be just a Bitcoin reserve. But and I guess my thought process for that was like, if BlackRock, for example, if you remember back in March of last year, I think it was, there was like the BlackRock digital liquidity fund that was on Ethereum. It was using ERC20, is backed by USDC. My thought process is like, okay, if this is going to be the way forward, and funds keep doing this, or companies keep like building on Ethereum in this manner, the United States government should have some sort of exposure, should have some skin in the game, in my opinion. But maybe that's more so the sovereign wealth fund. And that's kind of what that's supposed to be for in a Bitcoin specific strategic reserve, is standing alone. Which, after you talking, Funky, I kind of starting to feel that way a little bit. So yeah, I guess it's kind of semantics, and then at the end of the day, I guess, is the government going to be buying our tokens or not? I don't know. It's kind of up in the air a little bit, and I think you make some really good points there, Funky. I guess talking to the comments retail is winning here. Traditional markets are not. It's funny because this past February, I think we may have spoken about it on the show, but Robinhood extended trading hours to 24 hours, and then Charles Schwab also offered that same offering to clients to where you can buy and sell stocks 24 hours a day. Kind of feels like the 24-hour casino is wanted across the board for everyone at this point. So obviously that's not traditional funds and things buying and selling stocks all day, but if this is the way that things are going, then perhaps more people are going to be trading stocks 24 hours a day like crypto. So it's kind of funny that way.
Yeah, interesting. And thanks for bringing up the sovereign wealth fund. I'd kind of briefly forgotten about that. That's obviously like this alternative route, which I guess people were considering that might have crypto in it. My instinct, and this is purely based on nothing but instinct based on the way people have framed the conversation so far, is that if crypto has its own strategic reserve, I don't think it would then apply to be in a sovereign wealth fund as well. Although I'm pretty sure that Abu Dhabi sovereign wealth fund is used to buy crypto. So that I think is TBC. We'll see how that goes, but appreciate it for bringing that up because I'd forgotten about that fund as well, which I guess is in play in some respect. Appreciate you, Oxy. Stats, definitely want to bring you in today, my friend. What are your thoughts here? Big news over the weekend. Which direction do you want to take this? Reactions to the strategic reserve?
I don't really buy this is just education thing. It's like saying you should go give Ansem a lot of tokens and he'll tweet about you, and that's just good marketing. Like at the end of the day, if they had come on and said this is why, if he had come on and said we like Cardano is this or that, like we love Cardano for these reasons, XRP, these are the reasons we should put it in. This is what makes it something critical to American prosperity, security. It would have been one thing, but he literally just threw down 3 tickers. The same way you would have, it really felt like someone gave Ansem a shitload of tickers. I mean, a shitload of tokens, and he tweeted it. And then the price went up. Like, that was like, there was nothing more, and that's what made it feel so fishy, especially like Cardano, which I haven't heard about at all. I mean, XRP, at least I know that they've been marketing like crazy, but it basically feels like it's all for sale. Like if you give zero explanation for what you're doing, you literally just throw down 3 tickers. So I don't know. I think yes, there's education, and we can all say yes, you should go educate Ansem on everything you're doing, because then he's going to go shill you on the timeline, and that's business. But I think that's a misuse of the term education. As far as at some level, every level of grift is education as well. Like you're getting someone to do you a favor in exchange for whatever. As far as, and I'm not necessarily saying this is grift. Like I'm not going that far, but I think when you just throw down these tickers and say, oh, this is it really felt to me like someone just paid Ansem and he wrote a ticker that he was bullish on, and that was that. And I think the way you get around that is by taking it seriously. Like there's just a lack of seriousness going on here. Like launching your own meme coin, throwing a bunch of tickers into a reserve, it doesn't feel like it's being taken seriously. And I think for the bull case, the Trump bull case, to me, has always been that Trump would take crypto seriously and the world would take Trump seriously. And I'm just not sure if either of those things are happening here. Like, is this something, you see this announcement and you think other countries are like, holy shit, we got to buy Cardano now. Like, are other people taking him seriously? Because he's not doing the things that would be necessary for any of us. He's not holding himself to the standards that any of us would hold ourselves to if we were going to buy something and then promote it on our timeline and put our reputation on the line. I'm not saying that there's no reason to own these tokens, but defend the reason you're doing it, and I think that's important. As far as Eric Trump's thing goes, like the people who bought this immediately after the announcement, like for 10 minutes made money, but anyone who bought it an hour after the announcement lost money. It went up quick, and now it's down from where it was. So what he's making a case for the end of weekends, which I think I like the crypto use case of 24/7. I think it's debatable if it's a good thing for society or not. So that feels like a weird thing to hang your hat on. Like, yes, there's something there, but it's not like people who were at their computer, made tons of money, because the news got priced in immediately and we're down, 5% from where it was every hour. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting trade-off, like 24/7 markets versus less 24/7 markets. But it's certainly not like, I think, like the case for a politician to be making as like some huge thing. Everyone will like, look at these summary TradFi guides. I'm not sure exactly what they missed out on. But yeah, that was a bit of a cynical take. But those are kind of my thoughts.
Love it, man. I think a lot of that will resonate with a lot of people, and I think that's part of some of the despondency actually on the timeline that people have been seeking to articulate. I think some people have manifested that in the way by saying this, politics and Bitcoin is getting too close, and kind of speaking in a way that they'd prefer it if the governments and Wall Street were kind of more disintermediated. But like, there's also this thing that you've been speaking about, which I think is seeping into the other aspects of despondency, which is like, hang on a sec. So we've got this sovereign wealth thing. We've got you guys picking all these tickers randomly. And then also the thing that none of us have mentioned so far, but I guess it's all part of what you've just been describing, is like, you've got World Liberty Fi, who have been adding to their, I don't know if you'd call that a reserve or anything. I don't know what that's called. Their treasury, I think, is how they call it. They've been adding to their treasury over and over again with these tickers almost picked at random too. There's no thesis provided necessarily. Some of them are legit projects. Some of them people are more skeptical about, but as you say, there's no kind of deeper conversation around it. So it's I think it's speaking to a lot of some of the skepticism that people are feeling at the moment. Legendary.
I have less issue with World Liberty Fi. I was just saying, I have less issue with World Liberty Fi. I mean, there's a whole conversation we had there, but let's just take it at face value. It's a private company that raised $300 million USDC. Most projects in crypto raise in crypto. Like, they collect ETH, they collect SOL. They raise in USDC, so they're deploying that into different tokens. Like, I have less issue with that than effectively deciding what the taxpayer is going to do when you're the president of the United States. Like, to me, they're different.
Yeah, fair point. On that point, just to reiterate, people hadn't seen, it appears to be, although we definitely don't know this for sure, in response to the question, not the question, the statement made by Joe Lonsdale on Twitter, where he said, taxation is theft. It should be kept to a minimum. It's wrong to steal my money for grift on the left. It's also wrong to tax me for crypto bro schemes. Cut it out with these schemes, is what he said. And Sachs responded to that by saying, where is the tweet? Responded to it by saying that nobody announced a tax or a spending program. Maybe you should wait to find out what's actually being proposed. I think we'd all like to know what's being proposed, but I think up until this point, we just hear more versions of announcements about what's going to happen. So yes, hearing what is actually being proposed will be excellent. And so I hope that on Friday, that is what we get. So we can actually find out. Stats, you want to come back in again, then want to throw to Legendary?
Last time, but I tweeted this yesterday. When I hear that David Sachs tweet, it really feels more like an Ansem deal, where he gets free tokens in exchange for the tweet. My guess here is that the Sol, Cardano, and XRP are just giving the government free tokens, and then Trump tweets it. Like, it feels like that's the deal. Like, you could say the taxpayer wins. Like, argue, I mean, perhaps, but who's going to follow on here? And can you actually even sell that? I'm sure you can, but like, now it feels even more like an Ansem deal, free tokens in exchange for a tweet.
I see. Yeah, it's kind of similar to what the I think there was a Blockworks article that suggested that even for World Liberty Fi, there was a deal going around. It was like, if you buy this amount, we will buy X, the similar amount of your token. Maybe for the government, they obviously don't need to put up the money. You just kind of donate it as you would to a non-profit or some type of, it's kind of like, how you make the donations to a museum. They don't pay you for it. They just keep it. And by the government holding it, it should go up in value. I guess that is the thinking, but we'll have to see for sure what is decided on Friday. Hopefully we get that concrete information. Interesting stuff. Great discussion. I really, really wanted to hear from everyone on this. So thanks, Stats, Oxy, and Funky, for your thoughts. Legendary, coming back to you here. Any reflections on the conversation so far? Which direction do you want to take it? We've only got 5 minutes left today. I think this is the main topic, so I don't know if we need to go into the other headlines for the day. But what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, definitely stay on the topic, I'd say. The point where I agree the strongest with Stats is exactly this: taking it seriously. because I feel like this has been the wish of this entire industry, of our entire industry, to be taken seriously by the world. And not only is it the basically call it like random inclusion of some coins, but the thing that I actually have a stronger gripe with is the communication, that we are basically mirroring the NFT founder playbook of there's the announcement of an announcement. We start by a post on TruthFi. Then even David Sachs is saying, hey, don't judge the taxation part yet. Wait for the official announcement of that, because all we had so far is an announcement of an announcement pumping the market. And I feel like while that, applies well for meme coin pre-sales, for NFT projects, I don't really like this approach for policy making for the most powerful country in the world, and that to be the official communication strategy, because it's hard to basically take that seriously if this is how it works out. And obviously, if this is how it's communicated, you will always have that notion of the insider trades on hyperliquid, or alleged insider trades on hyperliquid, and other things that come with it, because it is more announced like a NFT project. And I acknowledge that the same thing will have happened in TradFi, and people will have had early access to different kinds of information and will have traded on that. But I feel like it's done in a way more blatant and obvious way right now in how things are being communicated and pre-announced. And that's something that while I do like the crypto reserve, obviously enjoy that, but the thing that I really do not like is the way it's being announced, like an NFT founder would talk about their project and pumping that up.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I think that's pretty fair. The thing that, I agree on that broad point. There's something off though to me. There's something off about it all. I guess I expected to be happier as this stuff was happening, and I think in the execution of it all, it's there's something off. What's funny?
Sorry to interrupt you here, because Oxy pointed it out and I just verified it on Truth Social. Let me bring it up on screen. Donald Trump posted 18 minutes ago in caps lock, tomorrow night will be big. I will tell it like it is. It's exactly that notion of hyping up things. And that's, it's a bit absurd.
Okay, so I don't know what that's in relation to, but Tom just tagged me on Twitter as well. Shout out to Tom. Thomas said that there's this announcement also made. I don't know where it's come from. He said Trump to make an investment announcement on Monday. Actually, I don't know if that's to do with this. Could be investing in anything. Tom, we need more clarity here, my man. But who knows? This is part of the thing. We don't know when he's being clear about what is any of this in relation to the crypto stuff. We don't know. I think the thing that got me. So thanks for tagging me, Tom. Appreciate it. We'll keep an eye out, I guess, for during the course of the rest of the day. But the thing that has kind of been getting me is the lack of seriousness about it all, and I think this idea that if the market seems just incredibly dependent on this right now, like that you saw how the price action moved yesterday with that tweet, right? It went from 82 straight up in a line to 95 or something like that, and then I think maybe people were digesting, like, hang on a sec, they didn't really say anything new here, but it's just incredibly reactive to the tweets. And I suspect now we're going to be trained for the next however many years to be very reactive to the tweets. And I guess part of the tweet I put out this morning was like, if the market is made by presidential tweets, then the market can be taken by presidential tweets. Like I still think and believe in Bitcoin's value as a apolitical form of money, but simultaneously, it seems like the market cares very deeply about it at the moment. And so that's just something which has been on my mind and something I've been thinking about. We're clearly incredibly tied up in now this whole conversation, which is maybe just the next phase for Bitcoin, to be honest. And it will take people a little bit of time to adjust. It'll take me a bit of time to adjust. It'll take people who maybe believed in more idealistic vision for Bitcoin a bit of time to adjust. This is just the direction it's going to go. And then we'll have to monitor it and see how it goes. So, guys, Thanks so much for joining us. That's our show for the day. We decided to ditch the other headlines for today and focus on the Bitcoin, the crypto reserve more generally. Hope that was interesting to you. Hope that got you up to speed. We will, of course, be with you again to discuss anything else that comes out, as well as all the other headlines in the space tomorrow, same time, same place, 7 a.m. Eastern time on X, Spaces, X Video, YouTube, Apple, Spotify. We are 11 subscribers away from 1,000 on YouTube, by the way. So if you haven't subscribed yet, would love for you to get us over the line in the next 24 hours if you can. Have a wonderful day. Take care. And we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.